So hi, I'm Dr. Therese House from House Family Chiropractic, and today we're doing a seminar on our Focus On workshop on ADHD. Okay. So first, living with ADHD. Having ADHD or being the parent of a child who does can be very challenging, and the rates are largely on the rise. The numbers are, grab my little packet. The numbers are increasing at a very rapid rate. Currently, between 4 to 17% of children will be diagnosed with ADHD in their lifetime. And in Michigan specifically, in 2007, the number of children who are currently diagnosed were 8.2%, and in 2011, that jumped up to 11.2%. So, in 4 years, that is a pretty big jump overall. Fortunately, there are many ways though that we can improve the symptoms of ADHD in a very natural way. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on, is natural ways to help to improve the symptoms that correspond. So first, when a lot of people hear the diagnosis of ADHD, they automatically think, okay, well that child or that adult, because that's the other largest population that is being diagnosed with ADHD, is actually in adults. The amount of medications being prescribed for adults with ADHD is rising immensely. And when a lot of people hear that diagnosis, that's the first thing they think of is, I gotta get on meds. But that's really not the case. There are now several medications that are on the market to specifically control the symptoms of ADHD. A few of those are Ritalin, Concerta, Strattera, just to name a few. But there was a list overall that I found of about 10 drugs in 3 different classes. So there is a whole lot out there. Now these medications do the best to mask the symptoms of ADHD, but as soon as the medication ceases, the symptoms will return right away. So it's doing nothing to actually help the person or their body function better. All it's doing is just covering up the way that they're acting or the symptoms they're displaying. And long-term use studies in adults showed an increase in heart rate, increased blood pressure, tremors, changes in mood, confusion, paranoia, hallucinations, delusions, and irregular breathing, all the result of long-term use of these medications. Okay? And that's the biggest thing that they've even noticed in children. A lot of these kids have never, or I should say the medications, have never been tested for long-term use in kids. So they really don't know what a kid is going to act like who's been on this medication since they were 6, 7 years old, what they're going to act like as an adult. Will those medications even work for them anymore? Will they not? Will they have correct brain development? Will they not? No one really knows, and those medications really do work to change how your body functions overall in an unnatural way, and it works as a really big stimulant to our nervous system overall, so it changes our nervous system, how it's able to function. And if you think, if we're changing how our body can function in little kids, they're growing up to adults, so you know it's also going to change their growth patterns. So another disadvantage of ADHD medications is that they have a plethora of side effects, including nausea, stomach pain, vomiting, headaches, insomnia, loss of appetite, dizziness, irritability, and mood swings, and increased anxiety. And those are all just from short-term use. And then, apparently this is what that's supposed to go on. The long-term use side effects are listed there below. Some other side effects: fatigue, increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, hallucinations, severe rash and blistering, shortness of breath, seizures, and numbness. So long, long list. So what we've really noticed though overall is that the best initial way to try and prevent ADHD or any other developmental types of disorders is to really focus on having a healthy pregnancy. So staying healthy during pregnancy can help the child avoid developing ADHD or any other developmental disorders. Studies have found that women who smoke tobacco or consume alcohol during pregnancy have a much greater chance of having a child with ADHD. So eating a natural, healthy diet while pregnant will help to ensure that your child will have the nutrients they need to develop a healthy mind and brain. Now, omega-3s is necessary for proper brain development. That's going to be the largest nutrient for brain development. And what they even noticed is that Omega-3 is used so much in pregnant women and in development of the baby and of the baby's nervous system that it actually takes 3 years for a woman who has had a child to replenish her own omega-3 reserves, that it is safer really for her to have another child. So they're really, really dependent. The developing baby is very dependent on the mother for those nutrients that they need, and really need a whole lot of it. So also it's important to try and stay relaxed during your pregnancy, get plenty of sleep, and try to not cause stress on the baby. So one other thing that they've really noticed is that while some people do have ADHD, it is definitely a widely misdiagnosed disorder. I actually was earlier today reading even a study from Michigan State that they had done, and they had noticed that especially in Michigan there is a large number of people who are misdiagnosed with ADHD. They also noticed that when there is a child who is the younger child in class, they have a much, much higher risk of being diagnosed with ADHD because they just don't have the same development that a child who maybe only a few months earlier would have. What they even noticed in the study was that in the state of Michigan, I guess that if you were born December 1st or earlier, if you have that birthday, then you can be placed in the, and you can go into school that year. Well, if you're born December 2nd or later, you have to wait till the next school year to enter school. But what they noticed is that there was a large difference in the number of kids with a December 1st birthday who were diagnosed with ADHD. It was much higher than the December 2nd birthday. So just having that extra time for the child to develop more decreased that diagnosis, because when a lot of people are looking at a child and their appropriate behavior, they look at it a lot based on the grade or their peers who they're with. If they're younger, they may have less appropriate behavior because they almost have the behavior of the year before them. And if your child has been diagnosed with ADHD, or you believe that he or she may have it, make sure that the diagnosis comes from a reputable mental health professional that specializes in ADHD. And that's to help prevent that misdiagnosis. So that's, what we've heard more and more is even of pediatricians just diagnosing a child with ADHD and then prescribing them medications right away, instead of maybe going to a psychologist or psychiatrist and getting their professional opinion on it also. Yeah. Also talk to your child about the difficulties that he or she may be having to get to the underlying cause overall. So some non-ADHD causes for the inability to focus can include dyslexia, and that's going to affect their development or their ability to read. So if they can't really read or comprehend as much what's going on in the class, they may seem like they're more disruptive just because they don't know what's going on. Also, the learning style of the student, if that does not match the teaching style of the classroom, they just might be less interested. If they're less interested, they're going to tend to be more disruptive in the class overall, and that's going to then put them in that ADD portion of that ADHD diagnosis. Also, being bored in school, so children like adults can have trouble concentrating, especially when something is too easy. So if you believe that the child may not be being challenged enough at school, you may want to consider asking the school to provide an aptitude test for the child, or an IQ test, to see if they should be placed in a class that is more stimulating to them, or maybe they can just be given some different things in the class to help stimulate their attention more. Also, on the vice versa of that is the material to advance for them. Maybe they missed some things in the step before, so then they don't understand what's going on in the classroom, which means they're not going to pay attention as much. Also, is there any emotional or behavioral causes there? Is there any tension in their home life? Is the child being bullied? Maybe they don't like being at school because of that. Are there stresses that are affecting his or her ability to concentrate overall? Because really, just like an adult, if we're stressed a lot because of outside things in our world going on, it's harder for us to focus at work, right? And on our tasks at hand. Well, same thing with a child, because really school is their work. So diagnosing ADHD incorrectly can be detrimental to the child's emotional and physical well-being, especially when the solution that you choose is medication. because those medications, like we talked about, have some very serious side effects, and they're going to really affect that child overall. Fortunately, there are some natural remedies to help alleviate the symptoms of ADHD that do not have the negative side effects, and that's really what we're going to focus on from here on out. Therefore, if someone is misdiagnosed with ADHD and is treated with natural, healthy remedies, his or her health can only really improve because we're working on just making their bodies healthier and function better. So first thing, this is going to be focusing more on the diet aspect first. First thing is going to be remove food additives and dyes. And this is really a huge part of the whole puzzle, especially when we're talking about the symptoms of ADD and ADHD. The big thing I want to talk about first would be the food dyes. Now, in the United States, we are one of the few countries that still allow food dyes in our food, because so many other countries realize that they are very unhealthy for you. They actually are neurotoxins. So when we ingest them, our body starts processing it, breaks them down, and they actually start to become toxic to our nervous system, which controls how our whole body functions. And for example, in Great Britain, they do not allow any artificial food colorings. But for example, even for red dyes, they use beetroot instead, yellow annatto, blue paprika. They use all these other natural things to help get that same color, but without having those detrimental neurological side effects. So you really want to remove the additives and dyes and preservatives from the diet overall. So if it's not natural, don't eat it. So my general rule is, if you look at the back of a package and you cannot pronounce, or you read an ingredient and you're like, what is that? It's probably not a good thing to eat. Or you can use the other way, that if it's not grown, since it doesn't come out of the ground or from a tree, it's not good to eat. So many dyes are synthesized from petroleum, which can carry toxic byproducts, including mercury, arsenic, and lead. And we all know how really you don't want to be ingesting any of these things, right? They don't even want you around, especially kids, rooms with lead paint in it, right? Because they're worried about the chips falling off, you eating them, or the child eating them, and then ingesting lead, because they know it's so detrimental to our overall health. But they're allowing that to be put in our foods. So studies have shown that food dyes, and this study specifically showed yellow 5 and yellow 6, but still blues and reds, very neurotoxic also, increase hyperactivity in children, especially in those who have the ADHD symptomatology. So because they are neurostimulants overall. So the dyes have also been linked to long-term health problems and disease. This here is an example, and this is again talking about Great Britain, but this is an example of a Kraft food box from the US that they have in their international food department at Great Britain. I know it's weird for us to think of Kraft Foods as international, but it can be considered that. And they actually have to put warning labels on all of their foods that have those food dyes in it. And their warning label, here I know it's hard to read, so I'm going to read it for you. That warning label says that the product can have adverse effects on activity and attention in children. So basically, that it can cause issues with being able to concentrate and hyperactivity, which are the two sections of the ADHD diagnosis. Right there from it, and that's what other countries require to be put on their food labels, because they understand the detriment that that can have to our overall health. So a big thing also is to eliminate sugar. So that's going to be mainly your white processed sugars. Okay? Sugar and processed foods have been known to worsen the symptoms of ADHD, including inattention, irritability, hyperactivity, and the mood swings. So especially when we're talking about white sugar and white flour when we're talking about processed foods. Those things are not naturally white. They are dyed. They are bleached out. That's why a lot of times it's called like bleached flour or bleached sugar. It's bleached out, and that's what makes it then white overall. And when we're eating that, then you're still ingesting the chemicals that they use to make that sugar white or that flour white. So once again, we're digesting more chemicals that our body really doesn't know how to process overall, and it can create some symptomatology in us. Also, sugar compromises the immune system, contains no essential nutrients, and can make it more difficult for the body to be able to process out toxins overall. So when we're talking about the immune system issue, okay, what sugar does is sugar weakens our immune system by feeding bacteria and feeding viruses. Their number one thing they like to eat is that white processed sugar. That's also a big reason why, and we all think of it coincidentally, that it all seems like no matter how early winter starts, right around that Christmas time, right after is when so many kids start to get the old buggy, nasty, clogged up stuff, and they all end up getting sick. Well, that's because their body has been weakened by all the junk that they're basically eating from the holidays. Now, one thing I wanted to do is, because I think a lot of us don't even realize the amount of sugar that we put in our kids' lunches. Because some things that we would have thought before as quote-unquote healthy or adequate good snacks for kids really are not healthy choices for them. So I thought I would change some of the, to make it a little bit more easy for us to relate to. Change some of the nutritional facts around, and I give you a different description of it. So what I did is I took the grams of sugar that was in a product and equated that to the number of sugar cubes that you're feeding your child. So when you look at Jell-O, so J-E-L-L-O, right? The Jiggler snack that we all like. Oh, let's get that back. Perfect. That actually, even though a lot of people see Jell-O as a health food, it has 16 grams of sugar, and that's going to be the amount in one of those little snack cups. That equates to 4 sugar cubes. So that's just like basically giving your child 4 sugar cubes. Not something you would probably normally do. Pudding has 18 grams of sugar. Which then equate to 4.5 sugar cubes. Go-Gurt, so the little sticks that I think are all the rage now with kids, they all want it in their lunch. This was on the lowest one that I could find was 9 grams of sugar, which is 2.25 sugar cubes that you're giving them. Welch's Fruit Snacks, which I know is a very popular snacks in school because I have been at schools reading to them and I have seen the teacher handing out those fruit snack packets to all of the kids in class. They have 15 grams of sugar or 3.75 sugar cubes. So if your child is getting that at 10:30, how do you think their behavior is going to be after that? They're probably going to be a little bit hyper. If someone just gave me that much sugar cubes, I'd be hyper. Twinkies have 18 grams of sugar, or 4.5 sugar cubes. A Capri Sun fruit drink, which at least when I was a kid, was the popular one, has 20 grams of sugar, so 5 sugar cubes. I was also kind of looking at some breakfast foods. So a half cup of Frosted Flakes is going to be equivalent to 3 sugar cubes. And a Nutri-Grain bar, also 3 sugar cubes. So when we look at that as even like one snack, you may think, oh, well, that's not that much or that's not too bad. But if we look at a child's lunch, I mean, at least when I was in school, I mean, it was normal for you to probably get like a Jell-O cup or yogurt, maybe, and a fruit snack and a juice box, all in your lunch. I mean, along with a sandwich or something else too. But those were all snacks. So if we're looking at between the juice box, your fruit snacks, and your Jell-O, let's see, you have just had 7.75 plus 5, 13? Oh, 13. Nope, 12. 0.75? Okay, I can't do math apparently. Sugar cubes. And that is a whole lot. I mean, you're looking at as much, if not more, than the amount of sugar in a Coca-Cola. Right? That's a lot of sugar overall for kids. And this here is even one of the food labels from the Nutri-Grain bar box, which a lot of us probably think Nutri-Grain bars, that's going to be one of the healthier snack bars to choose, especially for kids. Well, if you look at it, the number one ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. So the first number one ingredient in there is sugar. It also has your food dyes in there, highlighted or crossed, a couple of them. So overall, definitely not the best and the healthiest choice to be making for our kids.